Hello and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 3 and Black Ice version 10.33, and it is December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy, as Roosevelt FDR once said, in relation to, of course, the terrible and tragic events of Pearl Harbor and the surprise Japanese attack that took place there. I believe it is might be one of the single largest individual days of slaughter at a naval base. I'm not sure, but yeah, pretty horrific. And at the start of this episode, I'm going to be doing a little breakdown of our situation because time has moved forward quite a bit. And the main reason that I've played forward is I just wanted to get into the swing of things. There was a few minor micromanagement things I needed to do, like renaming units. I did a full reorganization of my armies, my generals, and I want to take you through that now, in probably about 30 minutes or so, just to show you what the plan is. So the principal aim of when I declare war, literally in a moment, is we're going to be taking our main carrier forces in this direction and also sending a detachment of them down here to help take Guam and seal off the approaches towards the Philippines. Now, when we trigger the Tora 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 event and Operation Z attack on Pearl Harbor, we're going to get some decent, so we get some soft attack, but we get that port strike efficiency plus 75%. We're going to definitely need that. That's going to be pivotal. So the way we're going to split up our forces, and I will go through the OBE in a minute, but I just want to talk about the general immediate plan, is we're going to take the 1st and 2nd Kido Tai because they're slightly slower. And we're going to send them south to take Guam. Now, sometimes in my experience, the American AI acts a little bit weird and it puts loads of ships in Guam. So hopefully they've done that, and we've been able to, hopefully our combination of our carriers that we're bringing to the party will do a decent job. Now, the other carrier fleet, I'm going to send off to support the invasion of Wake. Once we're done invading Wake, I'm hoping that we can take our forces immediately and do some port strike either in Midway or here. Or, as I say, they might have put fleet assets in Wake Island, which would also be a really good result. Because we want in the first month to try and do as much damage to the Navy as we can. Now, as you can see, here's all of our main strike forces. We've got a total of 12 carriers, split into 6 divisions, supported by 2 heavy cruisers in each group, along with 6 light cruisers. And they're all pretty, they're pretty decently upgraded. And our naval air assets are also extremely up to date. We're not even fielding zeros, look. We're already at the 1941 level, So it's pretty good. And they also have pretty amazing organization. So an organization, and that is increasing, we're increasing that to 197 on the organization front. So that's pretty impressive for our CAGs. They're going to take quite some beating before they have to return to port. So let's start with the home islands. So the only thing really here is a load of garrisons. I do have my transport fleet here, depending on where I'm going to need them. I have my backup CAGs, and in fact I need to put some commanders in those, but that's a minor thing. And then I have my air defense network. Not a huge amount of fighters because I'm not expecting to get bombed this early, but there's a few things dotted around. Now, for the invasion of Wake, we have a Marine Corps dedicated to this under Tojo, and I'm not going to try and pronounce that, and Ishiwara. And these are our most experienced naval commanders, and they will be landing on Wake Island and hopefully taking it quite quickly. There's no naval fortifications here, so it should be a quick job. Now, if we can take that quick, I'm going to immediately jump and try and take Midway. We're going to do a twofer if possible, and just get Midway out of the way nice and quickly. Now, in Nagoya, we have our slightly larger Marine Corps, and I'm dedicating that to the purposes of taking Guam. That's going to be the 2 major islands that we're going to want first of all. And then 4 naval assets, as I said earlier, we're going to take 2 carriers down south, and then the other 4 are going to head in this direction to defend Wake Island, and hopefully also defend, maybe do some port strike into Honolulu when the time comes. Now, we have a few other supporting naval units, so we've got some motor torpedo boats, because I did decide to build some for just basic home island defense, as well as some Pacific Island defense. We'll get to that a bit later. Some destroyers with transport ships, just in case we need to transport some troops. We've got 2 groups in the home islands. And then, as I say, that about ends it for Japan itself. So, in Korea, Korean army is unchanged, nothing but garrisons. We have included a air HQ down here, but there isn't any planes attached because there's no planes needing to be attached at the moment. And then we have our militia completely on the front with the Soviets. Now, getting to the more interesting part, the Manchukuo army. We've got our cav down here because they're facing very limited forces. And then we have our infantry groups. So we've got this infantry group that would help push in with the cav. So we've got 1 unit to push in with the cav and another 2 to support all the Manchukuo units over here. That's the reason why we've only got 2 facing sort of this direction. We've then got my main sort of infantry tank, slightly armoured specialist infantry units to push up. And all of my armour, I built 3 or another 2 armoured divisions that we have here. They go pretty quick, 6.5 kilometers per hour, and they pack pretty decent soft attack for what we're going to be facing against the Soviets. But yeah, some basic armor that I just wanted was supported by a semi-motorized infantry unit to push up and hopefully cut off this whole peninsula in Vladivostok when battle joins with the Soviets in early 1942. So following on from that, because some of the terrain over here is a little bit more mountainous, sort of in this direction, I've got all my mountain units ready to push into Mongolia and up here. Now, it's only 5 units, so they're going to be adopting more of a defensive stance while we wait for our units over here to clear up the Soviets in this direction. I haven't yet garrisoned this island, and I know I need to do that. But yeah. So that's our army over here. Now, I'm expecting a pretty large amount of support from Manchukuo and Nanjing. So I'm expecting Nanjing to do most of the work against Mongolia. I've not got Mongolia involved in any of the wars in China, so they should have a pretty decent manpower pool. Now, if we just have a little look and check what the situation is with them. Yeah. So they've got 207 manpower, which for them is actually pretty good. So hopefully they can be a nuisance. Manchukuo, same thing. They're still building units and they've got a pretty decent manpower pool. And we will get to China in a moment. So my puppet has been building up quite nicely. Tibet also joined the Axis. So one thing that I did differently is I decided to go back a save and not declare war on Tibet. Because it just ended up being one hell of a frustrating, grindy nightmare that really sucked. So Also, I think it was a bit cheesy. By staying at war with them, I was getting access to better laws. So it just felt a bit of a dodgy thing to do. And as I say, Tibet has joined the Axis, so the Dalai Lama is obviously a bit of a fascist. So following on from that, I've decided to put the Nakashina Homogan army over towards the Soviets. Now, the reason I've done this is that when war is declared, there's a couple of very important IC-rich cities that we can take off them immediately, and we can also just take a victory province off them, which will help Germany slightly. And we'll get to Germany and the Soviets in a minute. Don't you worry. But we are distracting a pretty sizable amount of their troops with our border, and they can't get through over here. So it's a pretty narrow front. I'm hoping that I can push this direction against Mongolia and take this victory point, and then push in with my mountain units and take this victory point with the support of Nanjing. That would be the hope. And China has been pumping out units. So they have actually got a pretty decent number of units now, and a pretty large amount of them are semi-motorized infantry units. So they've got a fairly actually quick army, but they are running out of commanders a little bit, so yeah, that's a bit of a problem. But other than that, they've also got an amazingly large air force. So they've got 15 planes there, they got 9 there, and I know they've got another air base, yeah. Yeah, we got another 3 there. So yeah, they, you know, they're going to be able to look after their own airspace without the need for us to get too involved. And speaking of air bases, we will, I think, take... Yeah, there isn't really any air bases over here to be particularly worried about. No. Yeah, it's all a little bit backwater over here. So, yeah, that's China. And China is garrisoned by a couple of armies. So it's garrisoned by the Chinese Coastal Defense Forces here, with a very sort of average commander. And then the Interior Force, which is just the Cav, and that's purely for partisan repression. So, in a sort of look at Hong Kong then, we're going to use these forces to take Hong Kong. Specifically, it's 1 corps with 2 units, but I have a fair amount of fighter bomber support that I can throw in. So that is going to be the plan. Now, I've loaded up my units, and this army here, the Kita Shina Homagan, is going to be used to take the Philippines. Specifically, we're going to be landing in the north and over here. We're going to use all 4 corps for this purpose. Now, in support of this, we do have a couple of battleships. So I think we've got, 3 battleship divisions that will be used for this. And then to help support Guam, we have 2 battlecruiser squadrons and the Yamato. The event did fire, and we now have the big boy ship that is going to bombard Guam and take it for the mighty Japanese Empire. Well, co-prosperity sphere. Sorry. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything in relation to Hong Kong and the Philippines invasion. Now, down here in what was French Indochina, but Vietnam, Laos, and a couple of other nations, we have nothing sort of too crazy. So all of my specialist light infantry and my mountain units and some more specialized light infantry are going to push up. So the mountains are going to push into this bit, and the specialized light infantry are going to try and hug the coast. And we got another corps of specialist light infantry to help shut this up. So we've got 5 units to push in this direction, and we may support that with an invasion if needed. I'm not sure about that yet. But we've got a fair amount of naval assets. So the coastal battleships are going to control this strait here. We're going to send our long-range submarines off on a bit of an adventure. They're going to head into the Indian Ocean and start interdicting some convoys. And then we have 2 light carriers that we're going to send off the coast of the Philippines. And that's going to be the carrier support for our troops. And then we've got some air assets to help bomb up in the north, because they've got a maximum range that lets them bomb just a little tiny bit of this northern area. So they can do a little bit of pre-bombing. And I think that is probably the main... So most of our forces are concentrated over here. Specifically against the Philippines and against Siam. Now, I think we are a little bit light on land forces. You could argue that I could take forces away from this theatre. But if the Soviets do attack us, which the AI has been known to do that, we could quickly get overrun over here. So we don't necessarily want to do that if it can be helped. So, for use against, sort of, in island defense terms, we have the truck garrison unit, and that's supported by about 236,000 units of garrison and supporting HQ attachments. So, we've got in truck itself our transport units, so that we can transport any spare garrisons to any conquered islands. And we've got all of our heavy cruiser flotillas that have destroyers ready to interdict. Now, we also have motor torpedo boat squadrons outside of our major ports. And that's purely so that if the Americans suddenly start to invade, we can just send a motor torpedo boat squadron out immediately. And then most of our garrisons have been reinforced. They're all pretty large and beefy. They've got rocket artillery. And on major islands, we have a tropical island garrison brigade alongside a bog standard brigade that has heavy artillery in. So hopefully we can do a lot of damage to the Americans when they attempt to land and beat them back. We want our units to keep them tied down there so that we can send our naval assets in to destroy the American fleet's piecemeal. And I think that is pretty much everything. Is there anything else I need to make you aware of? Oh yeah, we do have a submarine fleet that's ready to do a bit of scouting for us. Oh, and we do have some coastal submarines based out of Formosa, Taiwan. And they will literally just be doing screening along the approaches towards the Philippines, along with some convoy raiders that are heading off towards Saigon to join with the long-range submarines in their actions. So I think, as I say, that is pretty much everything. Actually, sorry, one last thing. Air cover. So we've got one fighter group. I've spent some time improving the airfields down here. So we've got a fighter group. And they've got pretty decent range. They can go most of Siam all the way up to the beginning of Burma. And by then we'll have captured better airfields a little bit closer by. Out of Saigon, we have all of our longer range assets. And they can reach all the way up to, again, all of Siam. And they're going to be providing the bomber support. They can also, from their port, reach all of Malaya as well, which is good. And then finally, one other thing I forgot to mention is we've got all of our naval air assets based out of Truk. So range-wise, from here, they've got a range that takes them pretty much towards Guam at a minimum. And then for fighter cover, we do have some twin-engine fighters based out of here. So they're going to be in that position. Now, production-wise, we are building still our light cruise carrier. I think I did put that on an episode, and we're just waiting for another airbase to finish. A few more motor torpedo boats are just finishing up. And I have built a few more convoys, just because convoys are going to be a bit of a problem. And I'm building another couple of carriers now that our carrier tech has increased substantially. Now, tech-wise, we are studying 1942 tech for the vast majority of things in 1941. So we're already prototypes, so we're very far ahead. And a fair amount of our naval tech is also really good as well. We have carrier task force now, which is really good, which increases our CAG efficiency yet further. And our air tactics, I must say, are all at 1942 levels and very, very efficient. Anything that increases CAG efficiency, we have. So our CAG should be doing an amazing job at taking out American units. But I think that is everything. When we begin the war, we're going to trigger these events, so these two in tandem, and then we'll get the event to put pressure on Siam. Now, when we get that event, I think I will probably puppet Siam. Yeah, I think I will puppet Siam. I'm not sure. We'll have a think, because I have a couple of leftover light infantry units. If I puppet them, if I get some units, if they join me, then that might actually be useful. Speaking of which, they look like they inherited some land. Oh, how interesting. So that's going to remove a river crossing issue. But yeah, if they join us, that would be really helpful. Now, intelligence-wise, still doing all my basics. That's a scary amount of IC. And the fact that they're on BB-55, I am really worried that... I mean, look at this. They've run out of named American ships. Now, it's either because they've built them, or, yeah. I'm worried. Let's put it that way. If we're in a battle and we're fighting 10 American carriers just in one of their squadrons, then we really are fucked. There's nothing we can do. The British are sort of very average, I must say, and the Soviets have a huge amount of IC. But I'm hoping I can get the Mexicans on board to join us, because they would give us a really good jumping off point. And I don't know what their alignment is. I am influencing them. Yeah, they are slowly heading in our direction. So hopefully, with us supporting our party, hopefully that will cause them to join us. But I think that's everything for the OBE. As I say, I've arranged most of my generals, and you'll see when we, have the battles how that's looking. But I've tried to give sort of generals that are very good at logistics down here. Same thing with, you know, logistics across all of these islands. But I've tried to give very crappy commanders that, because they're just there literally to defend. And any old guards that are going to be in static positions, the same thing. So I've really done a major bit of work just getting my army as I want it. But I think I will see you in the next episode. So thanks again for watching, and in the next one we will start the war. Thanks again. Bye bye.